Hello! In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a fully functional calculator app. All you need is a computer with installed Visual Studio, some patience and a bit of time. Okay, let's get started! When you launch Visual Studio, in the File drop-down choose New and then Project. We will be using C# language with .NET Framework, as you can see here. Type in any name you'd like, I call mine Calculator Form, and then click OK. The IDE will create all the files for us, and we'll just have to modify them a bit. Right here, you'll see the standard form with all the default properties. All we'll do to write our program is change some properties and later on code some functions. First, let's resize our form and choose the background image. I have it downloaded on my desktop, so I'll choose local resource and then select my file. Now click OK and choose the way the picture is displayed. Feel free to play around with it. I'll choose this one. Next, let's change the font. For now we'll use Baskerville All Face, but we can always change later. For color property is essentially the text color, so let's set it to a shade of green. Text is the name that's shown on the top of the form. You can call it whatever you like. I'll type in calculator. The name in the design dropdown is the name of the reference variable for the form. It's mostly used when the app has several windows, but let's just call it something meaningful. These dimensions are easier to change by resizing the form, but typing them in again is useful when you need multiple windows of the same size. You can also change the app icon here if you have a file with .ico extension. I'll just leave it the default one. Now let's add our controls. In the toolbox on the left, choose text box and drag it to the form. Resize it the way you want and choose the background color. To make it taller, you'll have to change the font size. Let's make it 24. Also, select the text color you like. I'm working with the green shades, so I'll go with dark green here. These are we don't need, so the next property we'll change is the variable name. It's a good practice to precede it with a proper prefix like txt for text boxes or btn for buttons. It will just make it less confusing when we'll code the functions. We'll choose a public access modifier to make it accessible to all the code in the app. That's all for the input box. Now let's create the buttons. Here it is, just drag and drop it. We'll make one button and style it in the way we want, and then just copy and paste to save all the properties that we need to be the same. Let's make this one a clear button. We'll give it a pale turquoise background, a bigger and bolder text, size 22 for here. The text color will be dark slate gray, and we'll only type in the capital C for clear. Later, we'll take care of tab indexes. It's essentially the order the controls are selected when a user hits tab. Now let's change the variable name to something meaningful, like btn_clear, for example, and make it public. That's the last property to modify here, so let's just copy it over and paste to create a plus button. As you can see, we save ourselves some time because the style is preserved. Paste it again for other operations buttons. This is going to be minus, multiplication, and division respectively. And of course, the equal button. I'll use a slightly different style for the digits, but as it doesn't influence the performance in any way, feel free to leave it as it is. Let's select a control for addition. We'll only need to do a few things. Set the text to plus sign and change the variable name. And exactly same for the rest of the buttons, just make sure to give them meaningful names. The original clear button is still copied, so just paste it. Now we'll make all the digits and the dot if you want to allow decimals. As I said, we'll use a different style. Give it a pale green background and the forest green text color. We'll set the text to 1 and call the variable btn_1. Now copy and paste it for all the remaining buttons. Like with the previous controls, we only need to change the text that appears and the variable name. I'll call mine btn_, each followed by the digit that it represents, and a dot, of course. Now is the time to take care of the tab index for each button. Nothing complex here, just start with 0 on the text box and then make it sequential. Next part is the most important one. Here we'll code all the functions that will actually make our application work. But first, we'll need some variables to represent the input numbers and the result of the calculations, as well as the sign, which would indicate which operation has the user selected. Double-click on the Clear button to create a function for the onClick event. Here, we'll just set the input box text to an empty string. I'll just move this piece before all the functions to keep the code in order. Let's double-click on the one button now. We'll display number 1 in the text box, or rather append it in case user types in some big numbers. All the same code for the rest of the digits and the dot. For some reason, the IDE adds new code somewhere in the middle, so I have to rearrange it several times. Actually, you don't necessarily need to go back to the form and click each button. You can just copy the function for number 1 and modify it. It doesn't matter really, but I'd rather do it the other way. I'll copy this part since it's identical for all the functions. Now that we've done everything with the digits, let's code the functions for operations. Set the num1, or whatever you called it, to be equal the text in the box. Now it's going to be represented by double data type. The sign is plus in this case, we'll use it later. Clear the text box to allow for new input, and lastly change the button color. This is optional, I just want to do it to indicate that exactly this button was clicked. Copy all the text of the function, go back to the form and double-click the minus button. Paste the code and change both the sign and the variable name. And we'll do the same for multiplication and division. Let's put some comments here to make the code more readable. It's not necessary, it's just a really good practice, especially when someone else has to have a look on your code. The only real thing left is a function for the equal button, so let's do it. I'll use the try and catch blocks to handle possible exceptions. Here, I'll put the code to be executed if everything goes smoothly. We'll assign whatever is in the text box to our num2 variable, again convert it to double, and I'll use the control structure for different operations based on the value of the sign variable. The first one will be plus. Since both numbers are double data type, we can just set the answer to the sum. Make the button its original color if you changed it before. And don't forget the break keyword, or the code will fall through to the next statement and you'll get some unexpected result. You can copy this piece and paste it for other operations. Make sure to change the sign values and variable names for the buttons. Right after the switch statement, we'll put the code to display the answer in the text box. And here comes the exception handling, the catch block. Let's assume the user hasn't typed in any number and the text box is empty, but they still want to see the result. We'll just prompt them for input. And the very last part, which is optional, is the function to confirm quit. It's basically a message box that would appear when the user tries to close the form. We'll have a function that returns a Boolean value of whether they really want to quit. These two variables are the texts that are displayed in the message box. The result variable is the box itself, or rather a reference to it. It accepts several arguments, such as the text that we coded earlier, the yes and no buttons, and the icon. In this case, we'll use the question mark. If the user clicked the yes button, so they want to quit, the whole function will return true, otherwise false. No need for the else clause here, because the function will quit after the first return statement it executes. Now we'll override the onForm closing function that already exists. Get rid of this line. So if the close cancel function returns false, the form won't close. That's the only part we need to override here. Congratulations, you're done! Now let's test it. It runs within the IDE, as you can see. To make it a standalone app, you'll need to publish it. We'll do it in a moment, actually. Oh great, everything worked correctly, so let's quit. Navigate to Build drop-down and select Publish. We'll go with all the default settings, so just click Next every time. And finish here. Just wait a bit, and here it is! The executable setup file is your app. Let's install it, just as you do with any other program. Here you are! As you can see, the IDE only runs in the background, so you're good to go. Thanks for watching this video. I'll try to release the next one with some additional functionality for this app. Goodbye!